But two members of the Rockford City Council vote not in favor to adopt a ceasefire resolution Monday night in regards to the ongoing Israel-Hamas war in the Middle East.
As you can see in here, the outcome drew an outcry from pro-Palestine supporters who filed into the council chambers for tonight's meeting. Those in support of Israel also attended. Tensions grew as Alderperson Gina Meeks attempted to abstain from the vote, but the city's legal director says council members cannot do so unless there's a conflict of interest. Otherwise, a vote must be held to allow abstention. That vote also failed, resulting in Meeks voting not in favor. Alderpersons April Prunty and Bill Rose were the only ones in favor.
You cannot prematurely end the war because then Hamas wins. They can regroup. They've done it before. They've attacked Israel several times since 2005. So if you stop the war now, Hamas starts again and they attack Israel again and again like they promised to do.
You know, some people think that this has nothing to do with Rockford, but you know, I believe that passing a ceasefire resolution through City Council will show the people of Rockford and the state, and eventually it will end up on the president's desk if it passes through state legislature, which is the idea, that the people of Rockford do care about human lives.